I happen to be the product of two parents who were both raised in Iowa farmland. So you can imagine that they also passed down to me the appreciation of raw milk and raw cream, and even better yet, homemade butter made with that raw cream. And my mouth is watering thinking about it. In fact, let me just tell you, my mother, I'm throwing her under the bus right now because she is the first one that when she thinks no one is watching, and if she sees there is a pat of butter nearby, she will take and eat it straight, right off her knife. I know that's terribly uncouth, and she thinks we don't notice, but all of us just chuckle and try to turn away as we watch her sneaking those wonderful bites of homemade butter. I promise it's that good though. Once you've tasted your own homemade butter, you're going to probably be guilty of it also. And in the next few minutes, I want us to walk through that very simple process that really all of us should know for how to make your own homemade butter from scratch. All right, what you're gonna want is some good cream. You can get that if you have raw milk. You can just skim it off the top of that milk. If you don't have raw milk, I want you to know you're absolutely okay just going to the store and buying heavy whipping cream. The higher the fat content of the cream, the quicker it's going to whip up into homemade butter. So you'll have people tell you all kinds of times on this, and I would just say, remember, the more fat that's in it, the quicker this is going to go. But get yourself the best quality heavy whipping cream you can. And of course, unpasteurized is going to be best. That's that raw milk you can get right from a dairy. This here from the store is almost always going to be ultra pasteurized. And I don't recommend that, but that's okay. Use what you can. Now, today we're going to work with some raw cream, and about a quart of this is going to translate into about 12 ounces, maybe 13 or 14 ounces of homemade butter, just so you know on the front end. But get yourself some cold raw cream or whatever you've got available to you, and you're going to pour it into a deep dish. Now, I'm in love with my red bowls here, and I'll just tell you right now, this one is probably a little shy on being the right size for this. So it'll come all the way up to the top, and you can laugh at me if it goes over the side. But you want a deep dish, just remember that. And then you want a blender. Now, every proper woman probably already has a nice KitchenAid, big, heavy-duty mixer, blender, do everything in the kitchen type machine. I don't have one of those. And if you're like me with a little shrimp-sized kitchen, you'll do it just fine, even if you have your 50-year-old grandmother's hand-me-down. This is a General Electric little mixer that does just fine. So if you've got what I've got, use that. You could even use an immersion blender or so many other versions of this. In fact, there are a lot of folks that will do it with just putting it in a jar, putting a tight lid on it, and I'll tell you this, I like putting something inside of it that's going to help. Like I have one of those little plastic balls that comes in my smoothie maker cup, and if I put that in here and shake it, it goes faster. So you don't have to have something like that, but you can literally just shake until your arm wants to fall off and turn it into butter that way in a jar with no other means. Also, you know that this wonderful hang crank butter churn that's by Kilner that you'll be able to get at Lehmans hardware store or lots of other places online. These are fantastic for churning butter. So get what you have available that's going to be able to whip something up, and you're going to just start whipping it until it turns into whipped cream. I love the sound of this, but it'll be loud, so bear with me. Let's get this whipped into whipped cream, and then I'll show you the very next step. Does Does that sound like Grandma's house? It does to me. I've heard her all growing up with this sound, with her using this very mixer. My favorite thing was her angel food cakes that she would make with this. Go patient. This is going to take approximately 3 to 5 minutes of just standing here carefully, not leaving it until it turns fully into whipped cream. All right, I want to pause it just for a minute and let you see where we're at. We're not there yet, but if you've never made whipped cream before, you might not be familiar. You can see how it's turning into whipped cream, but it's not quite there yet. It's getting thicker. This is probably considered a soft peak stage if you're a fancy baker and want to call it something, where it's not really making hard peaks, but it's making soft peaks when I pull up on it. And so that's getting closer. It will very quickly from this stage turn into hard peaks or a lot stiffer peaks, and then it'll be turning into a kind of a separated product where we're going to quickly start seeing the separation of the buttermilk from the butter fats. So I'm going to keep going, but just watch it close and you're going to notice a change here in the next few minutes. My grandmother's 50-year-old blender here comes with the quintessentially important short in the wire. So I have to hold it with one hand just right so that it stays going. You can see how that's getting stiffer. It's more and more like a stiff peaks, but very quickly after this stage it will turn right into a separated product. So we'll just keep on going. It's getting so thick that it's making it struggle just a little bit to keep whipping it. And you know it's turning into butter very quickly here. All right, I want to show you something really quick about this before I keep going. If I were to keep using this on whip setting at the very, very highest, most furious, it will try to reconstitute itself into something that's not really whipped cream and not really butter. And so we don't want to do that. We just want to scrape down the sides really good. We're going to turn it on a lower setting, which will make this struggle just a little bit, but it'll help it kind of settle out a little bit. And if you're using one of those KitchenAids, I know a lot of folks at this point would transfer this out from their whisk to a paddle, because a paddle is going to be a little bit more gentle on it. We don't have that luxury, so we're just going to keep going. But you'll hear it struggling just a little bit as I turn it to a slightly lower setting, and we're going to keep going. But we'll give it a chance to start turning into liquid and solids separated. I don't know if you can see it yet, but I'm going to stop it and let you just get a closer look of this. And I'm going to scrape down the sides. But do you notice, do you see the separation with the liquid there? There's a liquid that's separating from the actual solids. And that is what buttermilk is. It's way better than store-bought buttermilk, and we will be saving every drop of it. But this is exactly what you want to see. And we're just going to kind of scrape down the sides and keep going just a little bit longer until it turns into more of a clod for us to work with. But I'm excited to see that there is definitely a separation there. Let's go just a little bit more. This is definitely a recipe you want to be wearing your grandmother's apron also, because you will have splatters. You see that separating? I'm going to turn it up a little bit more. If I can pour off some of that buttermilk, that's just what we're wanting to see, and it's wonderful. We'll even strain out the little bits of butter that have gotten down into that before we're done. But see all that? It's amazing how much comes out. In fact, I think I'm going to use this jar that is standing nearby. Just pour off some more of that. You know, when you get to this stage, you can keep mixing it if it's mixable, or you can take a slotted spoon and press down, which is really what you see me doing here, and I think I'll probably just keep going with this method. Just taking a slotted spoon and pressing out all of the liquid that is willing to come. And once you've got everything that voluntarily is willing to come out, pour it off, and then we've got one more step before it's ready to indulge in. Look at that beautiful butter in there. Isn't that pretty? It's nice, it's solid and firm. One of the reasons why this works is because it is cold butter, or I'm sorry, cold cream. So remember that. Don't be using warm cream. It's going to go a lot faster if you have cold cream. All right, I think I've got it as much as is going to come out. And so standing nearby, I've got a colander that's going to make this next step very easy. What we're going to do is take this colander and put this clod of butter that we've got started, and it looks like I have one little tiny thing I need to get out of that. It already feels just like butter, but I'm taking that whole big clod out, and I'm going to set it down into this so that I can run it with some cold water over it. All right, I've got it in there like you saw me just put, and I've got a new clean little bowl because I know we're going to be pouring off some more kind of watered down buttermilk, and it will absolutely be fantastic for the animals and such if it gets too watered for human enjoyment. But I'm going to pour cold water right over this. And I like to use non-chlorinated, so if you've got some filtered water, that's going to be best. And we already really squeezed a lot of the buttermilk out, but you can see how the water is still a little bit milky colored. I just want you to give it another good squeeze either with a slotted spoon or right with your hands. I have clean hands. Because it was cold and it's coagulated nicely, or whatever they would call it, solidified nicely. But as I squeeze it, you can see it's kind of white water that comes out of that. So for it to last long, you want to squeeze every bit out. Now, the thing is that if I was going to eat this today or use it today, which I will be using some of it today, you really don't have to go through this process so much. But if you want it to last for a couple of weeks in the fridge, it's important for you to get as much of that milk out of it as possible. And I think we're really there. Get as much out as you can, and then we're going to sprinkle just a little bit of salt over it, and that also helps preserve it a little bit longer. Let me put that right in there, and I'll rinse my hands and be right back. All right, we've got our butter, we have our slotted spoon, and we've got just the need to put a little bit of salt in it. So the easiest way to do that is kind of to spread it just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and squeeze it out a little bit here, and then just sprinkle. For this amount, remember, for 1 quart of that heavy whipping cream, you're going to make about 12 to 13 ounces, somewhere in there, maybe 14 ounces of butter. And when it gets to this stage, you're going to sprinkle about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt if you want it to taste similar to store-bought. And this is that pink Himalayan salt, so you can see just a little bit of other color showing up there. And then I'm just going to squeeze it together real good while it's still kind of soft. And I'll tell you what, someday we'll do a sequel video when I'm in my dream kitchen with what I would dream to have to make butter with. And incidentally, surprisingly, it's not a KitchenAid. In the olden days, they would have those big wooden bowls that you often see in antique stores now, and women use them decoratively. But those wooden bowls that they use for bread now on the table were first called butter bowls, and they had butter just soaked into them from years of use, where they would use that as their main bowl to do all of this processing in. And this final process, they had these butter paddles, two kind of square wood paddles. I'm sure we can put a picture up for you to see what those look like. And you can shape the butter exactly as you would like. I think that those are the same paddles that are used in pasta making. But at this stage, that's when you just take those two square paddles and actually pat it into a perfect square the way that you would like it to. And I don't have that, but I do have some antique-y looking wax paper that I will use, and it's perfect for putting this on, and then I'll just shape it with my hands into a square, and we'll have just as pretty as the next guy. It just might not be with wooden paddles. In that last process where you put salt on it, you'll notice there is just a little bit more of the moisture that will work its way out when you put salt on it, because the salt just kind of helps that moisture wick out. And if you have that happen, that's no problem at all. All right, let me dry my hands, and we will just wrap this up beautifully. See if I've got the right. Whew, that's barely big enough, but I'll fold it up and make it nice. And then I'll tie it up. Isn't that beautiful? On the occasion that I don't wrap it up in the paper and tie it up with a little string, oftentimes in the past, people would store their butter smeared into a little crock about like this. This is a glazed crock. If I smear the butter into that while it's still soft, and then actually invert it into water, a little bowl of water, it will keep a whole lot longer in the refrigerator, or even just out on your counter, because it will have no exposure to air whatsoever. Did you feel this was incredibly simple like I did? It makes such a delicious butter. I can't even tell you how much you're going to love it. And it's soft, and it's, oh my word, look at how that spreads. One of the creative things you can do is to mix this with fresh herbs from your garden, or if you don't have fresh herbs, just some wonderful Italian herbs from the store or whatnot. But spread that on there really good, and I'm even going to indulge a little bit further and use this wonderful spoon that one of you sent me that says Jesus never fails. And I'm going to put a little bit of marmalade right on it. And I know that almost is sacrilegious again against the homemade butter, but it will be pretty and delicious in my mouth. And if I had more time, I would polish my silver so you would not see a tarnished silver spoon. But today, will you pretend like you just didn't see that? Anyway, I'm going to enjoy my homemade butter. I'm going to store the rest of this away in the refrigerator, and it should keep for 2 to 3 weeks because I was able to get so much moisture out of it and put that salt with it. But if you didn't go through those steps, you'll want to eat this just probably in the next 24 to 48 hours before it goes rancid. It will be absolutely delicious. And I hope that you make some homemade bread. If you don't know how to, we have an episode directly on that. And I'm so excited to enjoy that with my new homemade butter. It can't get any better than this, I don't think. Anyway, until I see you again, will you make it a point to go out and find just one person to be a blessing to? And will you bless them today? I hope you will. Until next time, God bless you. Bye. before you go, I would love to share a quick word of scripture. This is in the Old Testament of the Holy Bible, in the book of Jeremiah, and it's chapter 33, and it's just verse 2 and 3. It says this, "Thus says the Lord, the one who made the earth, the Lord who established it. The Lord is his name. He says, call to me, and I will answer you. And I will tell you great and hidden things that you have not known." Wow. It's getting dark out there. Now go out and glow.